Okay, great. So we are the Danish Social Innovation Club. So we are a non-profit organization of volunteers. We're run by both Danish and international students, as well as graduates. So me, myself, I'm from the UK, and everybody from a whole array of countries, as well as some Danes, we're working together to run an event. So our aim is to contribute to a society that's socially, economically, and environmentally sustainable. And how we do that is by following a particular theme. And this year, that is circularity in business, to encourage debate and discussion surrounding important issues and challenges facing modern day society. So we're looking to help and inspire different actors in society to use social innovation and interdisciplinary work to solve current societal challenges. So all of us from very different disciplinary backgrounds, different nationalities, of course, different stages in our education, and we're all working together to make this interesting debate around circularity in business and getting everyone engaged in this discussion. So let's have a look at who are DANSIC then. So this is a DANSIC team and a very happy group of people on there. So as you can see, it's a big team, a really strong big team working together, all with their different specialities and backgrounds. And we have people working in various departments and different teams to coordinate this event. So yes, maybe you recognize a few of those faces if you're based in Copenhagen. Okay, so let's go on then to the next slide. So let's talk a bit about why we're actually doing this. So what is this all about? So this is a case competition, and the webinars are designed to engage students in compelling business opportunities and practices within the notions of a circular economy. So we're organizing a case competition over 3 days, and it consists of 2 cases. And it aims to address business challenges using circular principles through a case competition of circular economy. Our target is students or recent graduates enrolled in either Nordic or African universities, and you're able to sign up either on your own or you can sign up in a team. And if you don't have a team, that's not a problem. You can just sign up and we will put you with some appropriate people into a group. So that's absolutely fine. Okay, and you've got a link here. Well, you can see the link, the dansic.inflow.io. That's how you guys sign up. And hopefully someone is going to post that link to you in the chat so you can actually go straight to that now if you're already keen to get involved. So we're looking through this case competition to create a space conducive to innovation, knowledge transfers, and synergies between students and businesses. So this event creates a space or a platform where students and change agents like yourselves can interact, network, and expand their creativity of thinking about solutions to these particular kind of challenges that we have in modern day society. So in essence, it's a place where creativity and business skills are able to thrive. Okay, great. So let's go on then to talk a bit about what we're here for today, and that's the agenda of the day. So I'd like to introduce our speaker, Camilla Kampmann. So she is actually, she's had many senior management positions in companies such as IBM, Unity, and Oracle. Camilla has over 25 years of experience from the IT industry, but for the last 7 years, she's focused on sustainable business models. And at the moment, she is building IBM's Nordic sustainability services. And in her previous position as Global Vice President of Oracle, she has introduced a circular business model where customers' obsolete hardware was part of Oracle's warehouse building spare parts with large savings and resource consumption globally. So unfortunately, she's not able to join us today, but that's not a problem because she's actually sent us a wonderful pre-recorded video that we're going to present to you guys. And we'd like to thank Camilla and the IBM crew for participating in this webinar. So we're going to get straight into that talk by Camilla and should be starting any minute now.
Hello, my name is Camilla Kampmann and I'm working for IBM. In IBM, I'm responsible here in the Nordic to build our sustainable services. And circular modeling have been my passion for more than 10 years. So I'm so happy to be part of this circular challenge with all of you. And I hope to give you some ideas of why this is important and also some ideas what to focus on to really come up with new ideas that matter. And my angle for today is the digital perspective of how to reinvent use of resources for this new economy. So why is it that many of us believe that circular economy actually plays a major role in creating a net zero society? If we turn to some calculations that the EU Commission have done, they are saying that resource extraction and processing represent 50% of the total greenhouse gas emissions we are seeing right now. They are also saying that 90% of all the losses of biodiversity is coming from this resource extraction. And then last but not least, the water stress is also coming from the same resource extraction, as you're using a lot of water for most of resource extraction and processing. So therefore, EU launched the European Green Deal, a concerted strategy for a climate neutral and resource efficient and competitive economy. So the goal is to scale up the circular economy from a front runners to mainstream economy players. And if EU succeed in making circular business model mainstream, it will make a decisive contribution to achieve climate neutrality by 2050, as it's decoupling in economic growth from resource use, while ensuring a long-term competitiveness of the EU and leaving no one behind. So let's examine that statement and that vision. So why is it that EU believe that the circular economy can decouple the economic growth from the resource use? For that, you need to understand how much of the resources that we are extracting is we can actually reuse. If you just look at paper, a paper fiber can actually be reused 6 to 8 times. So if a company decides only to use recycled paper, it means that first of all, it will leave the trees in the forest, and that the paper consumption that company is doing is reduced with 6 to 8 times. The same goes for the clothing industry. If the clothing industry, instead of producing new material, start reusing all the fashion that is already put out there, it's exactly the same. It's 6 to 8 times you can reuse a fiber in a cloth. If you look at glass, it's even better. So a glass can be remelted up to 30 times before you cannot reuse the fibers of the glass. And if you are reusing the glass as it is, you can use it until it breaks. If you look at zinc, you can actually reuse it as many times as you recycle it. So a lot of the materials that we right now are just using as landfillings, or we are burning it up for heat, is actually representing a huge resource that is actually cheaper. And at the same time, we are not harvesting for the future from our kids, as we are leaving the material in the ground, or we are letting the forest grow, and therefore also aiding us in the CO2 battle. So therefore, EU will require that 85% of packaging material has to be recycled by 2030. And many other legislation will come, and we will talk about that later. So the rise of exponential technology shift in political and business priorities present this unique challenge for every sector to convert into something new. And the climate change just put more fire to that and push to accelerate the energy transition. We are currently facing a systematic transition, and we expect it it will take 25 years to play out. But we also expect that wait and see will soon no longer be an option in any competitive landscape. So sustainability is becoming a design principle and operational goal for industrial products and processes. And some companies are already far ahead in their competitive strategy. And later in this presentation, I will give you a couple of my favorite examples. So what do we see when we are talking through all industries here in Europe? Based on insight from 300 companies in Europe, we have encountered three types of companies. Companies that try to do business as usual, so that means they're trying to dealing with the climate change, but they're not changing anything. Then and that's the majority of companies still in Europe. Then 30% approximately in each industry are optimizer. So this means that they are very occupied in energy transition, but also they are also very occupied in getting accurate KPIs so their leaders and employees can act on their sustainability and circular strategy. And then very few, normally 1 to 2 in each industry is reinventors. And they take everything into account and they reinvent themselves and become very profitable in taking in all these push that we are seeing right now. But what we also are seeing is whatever strategy you are leading with, business as usual, optimizer or reinventors, you need better data to act on. So 2 years ago, you were really in front of the sustainable game if you had a sustainability report that came out once a year. But we can see that more and more companies, if they are optimizer or reinventors, they are actually aiming to get these KPIs updated weekly, if not daily. And some is saying it's okay with monthly. But one thing is for sure, that it's not yearly. So this means their digital capability needs to scale so they can act on their sustainable business and circular model. And that again means that they need the dynamic reported, which is then shared inside and outside the company in dashboards. And then last but not least, it needs to be audible, because many of these companies also want to communicate to the market on their progress. And if they will not get into the accusation of doing greenwash, their numbers need to be audible. And again, we can see here that the auditors, the big auditors companies are really setting the standard higher and higher. So 2 years ago, you could actually get away with using your procurement data from your procurement system to calculate your sustainable footprint. But if you really understand what a PO or a procurement system represents, that is just a permission to buy. So this means normally if you put in a PO, you buy in for 3 months, maybe 2 years or a year, and then you consume whatever you bought over that period. So if you calculate your sustainable footprint from your PO system, that means that you are actually overshowing how much you consumed that year and therefore how big your sustainable footprint was. So therefore, the auditors is demanding more and more accurate data. So they want the actual consume for that period they are auditing, and they don't want the PO system anymore. So therefore, we are seeing that even if you're business as usual, your digital capacity needs to go up for you to be able to go out to the market with sustainability reports, etc. So but why is this important for a company? IBM is predicting that this new circular economy has a potential of generating 1.8 trillion euros before 2030. And this value is coming from the paradigm shift to optimize use and reuse value of resources at all time. And this means buildings, products, material, and energy. So instead of just throw out, the reuse actually represent 1.8 trillion euros, which is an amazing number. And this has been endorsed by European Commission, by World Economic Forum, and by COP21, the Climate Change Summit. So that's why we are saying C is no longer an option if you are competing. So a circular economy is a system-level approach to develop and design to benefit business, society, and the environment. So circular economy aims to decouple the growth from the consumptions, as we talk about, of the finite resources and build economy neutral and social capital, underpinned by the transition towards renewable energy sources and increasing use of renewable material. So this means that the companies need to design out waste and pollution. They need to keep products and material in use and regenerate, and hereby they will regenerate natural systems. Our current economy is surprisingly wasteful and crippled. So what we can see is that the region is hugely underexploited. And this is because there is some bottlenecks that we will talk about later. But what we can see is the company that get their act together and become truly circular, they see revenue and profit margins go up as their cost of new raw materials go down, as we can see in average that a reused material is around 50% cheaper than buying a virgin material. And therefore, you also see the circular companies create new jobs and new skill sets. In the same time, they are getting their CO2 footprint down and their energy and water consumption down, sorry. So the circular economy actually consists of two types of cycles. So you have the biological, where it's food and biological material that is feedback into the system through processes. So it gives life, it's regenerating living systems. And then you have the technical, which is where I'm coming from, where you get product components and material and restore it into the market at the highest possible quality and as long as possible throughout repair, maintenance, reuse, refurbish, remanufacturing, and ultimately recycling. And here it's very important to understand the EU legislation, because EU have for many years, more than 10 years, have something they call the waste hierarchy. And the waste hierarchy is saying that the higher you are in the triangle, the better. So this means that if you have a car and you can refurbish and put it out as a used car and sell it again, that's the optimum, because here there is very little resource waste, as all the energy that was used to build this car is still in function. And also you're not wasting any of the material that is inside the car. The second best is then that you take that car and saying, no, we cannot refurbish and sell it as a used car. We are going to use it for spare parts. So this is where if a car company makes sure that they get the cars back and they are refurbished, the one they can resell, and they are harvesting the spares. So the cars that is coming in for repair is not using new spare parts, but they are actually using spare parts from the cars that could not be refurbished. In that way, you are already very circular. And then when a car is being run so down that it cannot be used for spare parts, it cannot be used for refurbish, then you melt it down to raw material and it goes back into production to a new car. And that's the lowest level of the waste hierarchy. And the reason for that is that the lower you go in the waste hierarchy, the more energy get lost. And sometimes also some of the raw material will not be able to reuse that. So EU, to help this circular economy coming along, is creating legislation and norms. So what they are putting a political framework out, which is saying that they want sustainable products And with sustainable products, they mean two things. First of all, they want as much as possible of the material going into the product to be reused. And second of all, they also want the design to be easy to repair. And to enhance that, they are empowering consumers and buyers to actually, it's a right that everything needs to be repaired. So just a couple of years ago, it was the norm that a mobile phone could not be repaired. So it was glued, so you could not open it up. So even if it was a very small thing that broke in your phone, you would have to buy a new one. That has been forbidden here in the EU, and therefore you are seeing everywhere in all towns small repair shops popping up, and you can go in and get their phone repaired, and you can use it for years more to come. So all that is also being secured by law. And then they are also working with the industries on making standard that's circular. So that means that they will actually start forbidding the processes that is not taking circularity into consideration. To get all that to work, they have enhanced the waste policy, first of all, to prevent the waste we were just talking about. And then a thing that is not working, and I hope that some of you will take that challenge to heart, is creating a well-functioning EU market for secondary raw material. And why is that important? It's important because if all of us, all the industries, all the production needs to change to become circular, we need a steady supply of used material. And we also need it in the quality that it can just go into our production. And this is where end users are going to play an important role, because if we as end users are not handing back all our waste and we are segregated into the buckets that the industries are asking for, most likely it will be too expensive to split it and get it into the quality. So this is really going to be a society effort that we as end users are aiding the industries to get the reused material. H&M is a very good example of how they, in all their shops, you can actually hand in a bag of used clothes, and they will actually also give you a kickback. So they will actually give you a discount. So they will weigh how many kilos you are handing in, and then they will give you a price tag that you can deduct from any new clothes. And this is extremely smart of H&M, because they have patented some methods of how to take your old clothes and make it into new fabrics. And by doing that, they have actually reduced their water consumption with 40%, according to their sustainability report. And they are not telling how much, they also reduced how much chemical they are using to color the new material, because apparently used fabrics is much more receiving of color, and it keeps the color much more. So this means that when you are creating new clothes and you are making it into the color that the designer have decided for, then you will use less chemicals and less water to actually get it into the fashion. And then when you as end user are putting it into your washing machine, it's not giving the chemical back. So that means that you can wash it together with your old clothes. So in all, H&M is trying to secure fabrics from their users by giving a kickback, a discount, and then they are actually using that clothes to create new fashion that we can buy in the shops. Last but not least, the legislation is also trying to enhance the toxic-free environment, because it's not always safe to open up an old machine, because there's a lot of fumes and chemicals. So therefore, we also need some legislation on how we as workers, as human beings, can be in this circular economy without getting harmed. So the circularity is a foundation for climate neutrality, because we will use up to 50 to 100% less virgin material. Ellen MacArthur Foundation have actually come out with a calculation that's stated for Denmark that if we got our act together here in Denmark and we were 100% circular, we could actually start exporting used material to the rest of the world. And we would only need an infusement of 10% of virgin material a year. So that means the whole Danish economy could decouple our growth down to 10% of what we are doing today, which is amazing. And therefore, we need to get the economy, the financial incentives correct. So this means that in EU, they're building in a stick and a carrot. So a carrot is for the more circular you are, the less taxes you will pay. And the less circular you are, the more taxes you will pay. So that's the stick and that's the carrot. And that also, there's very many funds being put out into the market to drive transition through research, innovation, and digitalization. So this is where we as IBM comes in to the circular economy. So we are very occupied on how to reinvent the use of resources. And this means that we are very occupied on how to rethink product design, as we spoke about earlier. So first of all, how can we reuse old installed base waste to build new? But also, how can we ensure that whatever we put out on the market can be repaired and easily repaired? And then last but not least, the stuff we cannot reuse, how can we get that into the circular economy as used raw material? Another thing where we are investing heavily in the platform economy is empower new reverse logistic. For this to all work, it will mean that we also need the reverse logistic, that stuff is coming back to the company. In the past, we were very linear. That meant that we got some raw material, we did something in our production, and then we sold it to an end user, and we hope never to see that product again. In the circular business, you want it back because you want to use it as a resource. And this is where collaboration platforms are coming in. So for instance, we have created a platform for the fashion industry, where the fashion industry can follow, where you as an end user can follow your clothes all the way from cotton fields and all the way out to the shop and into your closet. But also it means that in logistic, they can start predicting where there's used material that they can come back into their production. Because this is key, as we spoke about earlier. If there's not a steady supply of used material, this system will never work. And this is where all of us have a key role. So we are helping clients to design and deliver digital technologies that will provide digital identity to reusable materials and support visual recognition for waste separation, track operational processes of, for instance, recycled plastic, and then intensify change behavior. Just as we spoke about that H&M is actually awarding their customer who's bringing a bag of used clothes that they want to hand in. And then use analytics to measure circular performance, which will enable better performance and new business models. So this is the technology take on how to create a circular economy. So let's see on some business models. So a couple of years ago, HP redefined themselves. So instead of being a printing selling company, a printing machine selling company, they defined themselves as a service to provide printing. And this meant that a lot of new models evolved inside HP. So instead of being very occupied to sell the printer, they start to develop platforms where you can share a printer and where you can rent a print, or you can get it for free sometimes. And then they also put Internet of Things into their printers, so that meant that the printer could report back if it needed repair, but it could also report back if it needed ink. And therefore, they could design an ink service where you, on subscription, could actually get ink sent to your home. And in the envelope, you took out the new ink, and then you put the old containers down into it and send it back to HP. And hereby, they can actually reuse that plastic container more than 10 times, which is, of course, driving down their cost. But in the same time, it's also very good for the environment because they have decoupled their growth with a factor of 10. IBM itself is also very good in asset recovery. So actually, IBM recover 99% of the equipment returned to us. And that meaning that we are giving it new life with new IBM parts. So we will refurbish and then sell it as a used machine, or we will use it for spare parts, or if there's absolutely no way, so we will move our way down to the waste hierarchy we talked about. And if nothing else can, we will melt it down to raw material, use raw material. And this means that only 1% is going to waste of the equipment that the users hand back to us. Then IBM have discovered a chemical process that can actually digest plastic and make it into a substance that you can feed directly back into your plastic manufacturing machines, and hereby creating new products. We are hoping that this will mean that all this plastic we are seeing in our oceans will disappear, because now used plastic is a valuable raw material that you actually want to collect and sell. And hereby, hopefully, we will not see all these plastic islands that we are seeing right now. And with that, the biodiversity will not be harmed as much as it is right now from our plastic consumption. Then we have created another platform, which we are calling responsible sourcing. And this was especially for the food and fashion industry. And this means that you can follow from the smallest part that is going into the product that you end up buying, how it's being produced, that it's following UN's 17 sustainability goals. And that means that human rights practices and environmental regulation is compliant. And this is a blockchain platform, so it provides a network where companies can trust each other, that if they are on this responsible sourcing platform, that they are not getting into any trouble because their compliance with all the laws needed for that industry. So this brings us up to what is metrics for circularity. It's what we see the main use cases is about material circularity indicators. So this means that how much are you restoring of materials? So is it 90%, 50%, 10%, that each of your new products is composed of circular material? It's also how to optimize, so circular insights and services. So here, circular metrics is very much about, are you wasting too much energy in your production? Is there too many products that is at fall and therefore cannot be sold? This is also a waste. And if it's a waste, is it going back into the production as used material? And then there is a monitoring framework from EU, which is most likely going to be the foundation for the tax system of the stick and the carrot. So if you're more circular you are, the less tax, and the more tax. So this is how EU's This is material circularity indicators, and that is being developed by Ellen McCartney MacArthur Foundation, which is, by the way, my favorite foundation. What they know about circularity is not, I don't think anyone knows as much as they do. So if you are not already following them, please, I encourage you, if you like circularity and circularity models, you should definitely look into Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So what they're looking at is, again, how to monitoring circular systems. And then we have this circularity insight as a service. So we have a platform that you can adapt into your company, and then that is enhanced with an AI, and that AI will then help you monitoring how you are sourcing, and then tracking it, making it audible. And if you also invest in Internet of Things, it can actually tell you location and availability of the assets. And last but not least, we are working with EU, how they should build their monitoring framework for this circular economy. I hope this was an inspiration for you, for what you are about to, your assignments. So I look forward to see all the good examples and ideas that you are coming with. So thank you.
Okay, back again. Hi, Outi. Lovely to meet you. Thanks for joining. And thank you again to Camilla for that lovely talk. And it's great to hear expert insights from someone who is really deep in with this field. So thank you again, Camilla. And we are very excited to announce that Camilla will be one of our judges at the case competition. And speaking of judges and other members of the team, we'd like to now introduce Outi and also Tina. So we have two lovely panelists here who are going to feature as a mentee and judge respectively in our case competition. So first off, Tina. So Tina is considered a leading expert in the Nordics in responsible leadership, climate action and storytelling. So at the moment, she's working as the co-founder and CEO of Sustory, while expanding her expertise with MSc studies at the UN. She's currently involved in several global initiatives relating to sustainability and is doing a development project for UNITAR. So her focus is on the growing demand for sustainable solutions and reporting relating to the impact of climate change, the SDGs and other transformation enablers. So welcome, Tina. It's great to have you. And Outi is from Finland, so a very international team here today. She is living in Dubai at the moment though, and she's currently working as the head of sustainability for Adelante Americas. She's very passionate about CSR, corporate social responsibility, and philanthropy, which also represented the topic of her master thesis. So what we're going to do now then is transcend into a bit of a panelist discussion with you guys. So we have some questions here that we would like to ask you, and if you guys just unmute as and when you see fit, it would be great to hear from you both. So first and foremost, we hear a lot of different versions and interpretations, but what do you actually consider to be circularity? So what is circularity to you?
Okay, so if I go first,
Sure.
So my name is Outi, and as you mentioned, so I'm working currently as the head of sustainability for Adelante Americas. I know circularity is a very big trend right now, but for me, it's not a trend, but it's something that has to do with our planetary boundaries. I mean, we cannot just keep on consuming the way we have been, and this needs to change. I remember when I first started thinking about these issues was a little bit over 10 years ago when I was studying at Hanken School of Economics. So we formed this Hanken Social Impact Club, and we used to actually show videos that had to do with sustainability and circularity to the students, and one movie in particular that we watched was called The No Impact Man. which was a film where this family in New York lived for 1 year trying to do zero impact. So that really had a big impact on me as well. But I don't think this is something that we all need to do. We don't all need to go into the extremes and live like that. I mean, but if everybody would just think of these issues from our level, so maybe we could then have a greater impact. And I know it's funny that some people just say that this doesn't involve me. I don't have to live. I don't have to reuse things. I can just buy things. I don't have to recycle, because what about people in China? But this is not about whataboutism. It's about all the impact that we, each and every one of us, can do as consumers. So that is a very broad definition of circularity, what it is to me.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And Tina, do you have anything to add?
I have many thoughts as well, and it's easy to agree with many of the things that Outi is bringing up. Maybe one thing that I would want to emphasize is that as both of us have our backgrounds in the Nordics, and we have a long and harsh winter, and throughout all the ages we have had that, we have learned that even though our societies are doing well, there is a scarcity of natural resources. Fruits aren't, for example, available throughout all of the years. You can't go to the woods and pick berries throughout all of the years. There's a specific time when you can do that. And that also means that if we pick, for example, as simple as picking blueberries in the woods, you want to ensure, first of all, that you can do that the next year as well. But at the same time, you want to consider how you do it so that you can have those same vitamins throughout winter. So I would say that every now and then we tend to maybe overcomplicate these things, where it's more about considering that the things that we have, how can we ensure that we will have it for not only the next year, but for years to come? And I have to say that this is no easy matter to solve. But having said that, there was a point of time when someone found oil. And finding oil as such was no big deal, because we didn't really know what to do with it. Then someone started refining it, and we could create energy that has been one of the greatest inventions that has created the modern society that we have. What I'm thinking is that at some point, I hope that we haven't extincted all of these brilliant people who just found something and could create something amazing of it. And I'm completely convinced that we haven't. It might just be that we have slightly lost our creativity, that things have been going so well for a long time that we might have lost sense of how creative we actually can be. And circularity to me means that we have a chance of reinventing ourselves. We have so many materials around us that we might see as waste, but at some point also the materials that are very valuable today were waste or not usable. So instead of just going into the part that we're going to run out of resources and everything, what if we would rethink it and see that we have a lot of resources here that can be reused, that could maybe, instead of be downcycled until they're downcycled so far that they cannot be used again, what if we could upcycle them? We're brilliant people, and especially the youth are brilliant people, and I think that we just need to find this part in us, this willingness in ourselves to this passion to want to pick the blueberries the next year again. And start thinking about how to do that. And as was in the presentation, the ones that have come up with solutions on how to actually reuse things that are already in the system, they have been able to turn it into a positive financial impact in the company.
Okay.
And I think that should be motivating for all of us, that we can actually like it. You can see it somewhere, that it's not only doing good to yourself and to the environment, it's actually also doing good to the economic system. So that's kind of like, but yeah, this part that sustaining things is kind of like what it means to me, that we operate in a way that is sustainable.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so both obviously very positive outlooks on the concept and the movement, but what do you think would be the biggest challenge in actually applying the circularity to current economic systems? So in practice, how are the barriers actually looking? Is it very, very difficult to actually impose these kinds of solutions?
I mean, if I would have to mention one thing that is the most challenging thing, so that would be people. I mean, this is so challenging in all different levels, but I mean, if we think about the people in our society that just don't care, if we think about the people in companies that just don't care, and unfortunately, if we think about the people in governments that just don't care. Luckily, now I can see, and what also Camilla talked about is the legislations that the governments are starting to implement. So this is a great thing, and it's great that the businesses are starting to realize that there is a positive correlation between circular business models and profits. But I mean, we cannot just shame the consumers and put everything in their shoulders, because there needs to be so much done in so many different levels. But if the biggest challenge are we, the people.
Yeah, I would agree as well that we have been shaming societies for quite some time. And I would dare to say that it's clearly not working. So maybe it's time to try something else. Government regulations is, of course, something that can boost the development, but usually it's also fairly slow. If you look at the process of getting a new legislation in place, it takes years. And even when it's in place, before we act upon it, it takes years. And I am not convinced that we have years anymore to spend. So therefore, I think that it is brilliant to actually tap into the people that are not spoiled by years of success. So already for me, I have so much unlearning to do, and it is so hard. It is so hard, because especially already in companies, when you look at the financial statements or you look at the GDPs and everything, as long as those numbers look fine, there's really necessarily no rush. But so for us to unlearn from those and get new things and new measurements, as was mentioned here, also into the system is quite hard. But I think that there's a young generation that is evolving that don't have all of that luggage, which means that let's not like take them there so that they need to unlearn as well. Let's just kind of like allow them to rethink things without needing to unlearn first. So I think that the power is actually there in having them help us unlearn and actually see the new opportunities. So and I think that there is power in society, but this is not, societies won't resolve this, because circularity has been made very complicated. And I think again that it doesn't necessarily need to be. Of course it is complicated, but it doesn't necessarily need to be. We shouldn't get lost in the complexity of it.
Okay, and in terms of this complexity, do you think there's a particular part of the supply chain that needs the most transformation? Is there a certain element that is struggling the most?
I think that we might have been focusing on the wrong part of the value chain. So I think that we are forgetting that the biggest impact is actually in the very beginning of the value chain and at the very end of the value chain. And we keep focusing on kind of like the middle part, the part that is actually fairly efficient. And the other part that I don't have an answer, but at the same time, I'm wondering about how we could manage the whole value chain and who would manage that. And there again, I'm just going to like put it out there. I think that from the Nordics, because we have a low hierarchy, so we have like very low structures or a flat structure already in the countries, but also in the companies. I think that there could be good things to build on from there, on how to like come together, how to partner up for a common purpose, and start like also tapping into these two parts that might have been overlooked, and expand beyond ones where we have good practices or good models on how to make processes efficient, and move into the areas where we don't necessarily have that knowledge. So I think that we have some great mentalities and great things that we could build upon here. But I think that this value chain and how to manage the whole value chain is really a big struggle, and like really, it's not necessarily, well, it's quite complex as well, but it's doable, but it's difficult. And I don't have an answer to that. So
okay, yeah, no, that's great.
And I agree with what Tina just said. And but if we look about the value chain in general, for me the biggest issue is that it should be more transparent, and we should be able to trace, I mean, the whole manufacturing process and everything. And the problem right now is that in many of the companies it's not. But I am so glad to see, for example, in Finland, we have a few companies that are bringing out their supply chain. They are putting it on their websites and explaining, for example, the cost of the product, where does it come from? And it's very good for the consumer to know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and building on that, so you mentioned the education awareness is a key part of it, but how do you think are there other ways that we can actually promote this circularity system in a world where businesses are profit driven most of the time? Are there strategies that we can implement to shift the motivation towards this new kind of society?
Well, I am hoping that the mindsets will change, and as we talked earlier, so there definitely needs to be incentives for the people wherever, whether they're consumers or whether they're in businesses or whether they're in governments. I mean, it's that's the main thing is to create an incentive, as Camilla said about earlier on her presentation. So there needs to be the incentive.
And on this purpose-driven part, I would actually want to emphasize that companies, the world is changing. So there is a lot of research that is actually saying that the future of companies and the future of work, so people are, if they have the sense that this company is only aiming to put more money in the pocket of the company leaders and the shareholders, it is very likely that they will not be attractive companies in the very near future. And I think that this is really important to understand. And also that companies that have a clear purpose and are purpose driven seem to actually outperform other companies today. Therefore, having this, that companies are profit driven, it's not that simple that their only purpose is to make profit. Actually, if you want to attract talent and good talent and innovative people and creative people, which all of the companies actually need more and more, if your only aim is profit, it is getting less and less likely that you will attract these people to your company. And this is also a reason why you start seeing that there's a lot of entrepreneurship and alternative businesses popping up, because they just feel that there are a lot of companies, or the options for them to work are not suitable. They don't want to contribute to that type of activities. So they decide to do something by themselves on their own. And that's like an interesting trend and signal. And there's so much research around this part that I think that, and this again comes slightly back to the youth as well, that the youth, as it looks at the moment, the youth will choose differently. And we are at the same time very dependent on getting already through the fourth industrial revolution that is happening. We are very dependent on the youth. So if they choose differently, companies will be in trouble and in the quite near future. So there is an urgent need to pay attention to this. And I think that the biggest companies are, so as with the IBM presentation, you could see that they are also paying attention to this and considering how to bring the purpose next to the profit. Profit is only one part of the responsibilities of the business.
And it's great that you bring in this role of youth, because actually that's of course what we're all about at DANSIC. And I was just wondering that in addition, it's actually a question we have from someone who's watching. In addition to the choices element, do you see an important role for students and young professionals like ourselves in achieving this transition, in addition to just the consumer choices that we make?
I mean, I am working as a head of sustainability for Adelante Americas, and the whole idea with us is to connect youth and with the change makers. So we're all about the youth and sustainability. So I definitely think that and this was actually a discussion already 10 years ago when I was studying, that the future is in our youth, and the youth will understand, and they have a different mindset on these issues. But I definitely think that we need to educate ourselves. We need to understand that we do have the planetary boundaries, and we cannot keep on living like this. And actually, now that I mentioned Adelante Americas, so we are having, we just had a sustainability launch, and we are just having a competition where designers are supposed to recreate a dress from waste. So this is like from waste to fashion. So this is another great idea from young people to rethink, and there are so many companies that are rethinking these issues and actually doing products from waste, which is a great idea. Some old ones as well, but most of them, yeah.
Yeah, we can't forget about the old ones. We're Outi closing up to that. So yeah, I would say that there's a lot of ambition in youth, and that is again like a power that we should harness. And there's another thing linked to this, that there's a system that we're accustomed to function within. And I think that there is, within my generation, I can already see that there's this thought of victimizing of the system, that this is how the system works, and we're victims of it, and we can't change the system, it's too big, like this is how the financial sector is running and all of this. And I disagree. We have created the system, we can reinvent the system. So the system was created based on the things that we knew at that time, and we didn't really understand the full impact of the things that we were doing. So already on this, on the economic aspect and continuous growth, we didn't take into considering that system and creating that system that the mankind's creativity and imagination is limitless. So we will never reach a point of satisfaction. We will never be satisfied with what we have. And that's also one of the greatest things that we have, one of the greatest powers that we can use if it's directed in the right way. And yeah, so I think that there's ambition within the youth to do things differently. There's an ambition there to actually like drive a systemic change. And that systemic change moves from me to we, and from there to like all of us. But of course, that movement from me to all of us, like that's quite a leap, but it can be done with this ambition and with the power in youth. So I actually, but I think that there, of course, like again, because I'm reaching up to the older generation as well. So I think it needs to be done in collaboration, or I hope it can be done in collaboration. And those bridges need to be built, because we can't just like leap from one system to another. There needs to be bridges built so that everything doesn't completely collapse in between. But yeah, so maybe that a systemic change.
And there are great and there are great examples of these young environmentalists like Greta Thunberg and Vanessa Nakate, and I mean, as we're running out of time, so I just need to mention this great lecture that I heard from Vanessa Nakate. So it really had a great impact on me when she said that we cannot drink oil and we cannot eat coal. So that is, I mean, no matter how we think about it, I mean, we cannot eat coal, we cannot drink oil, so something has to change.
Okay, great. And just to wrap it up then with one last question, quite an interesting one and possibly a bit challenging for you guys to adopt maybe a bit more of a critical lens and think, are there any limitations that this new model might bring?
Go first, Outi. It was a hard question.
Sorry, let's end on a tricky one.
Limitations on what? Sorry.
On circularity in business in general. Is there anything that makes it perhaps too challenging or any general negative elements to the concept?
I could say that we have one big challenge and limitation at the moment, and it is that for businesses, the financial statement at the moment poses some limits. We don't have a holistic way of actually measuring both the impact and the financial impact of decisions made in the company. We measure a very limited amount of things, which brings us to a problem. And this is again like a systemic problem, but it brings us to a problem. And there's a lot of work on this true cost of things. And for example, within food, we already see that food is actually too cheap if we consider the consequences of like a lot of things that we're actually doing. But how do we change that? How do we get all of those into the financial system or to the financial reports? Or how do we get an integrated report, or which measurements should be there? How should we calculate these? That's a quite complicated question. And I think that this might be one of the biggest problems that we're facing today. The good thing is that we already have, already raw material costs is something that we can actually bring into what we have today. But I would say that this is like a big challenge. Having said that, again, that financial statement and system has been created by mankind, so we can also change it. But measuring the value of the company and like that whole discussion, I'm not a financial expert, but I know enough to know that it's not an easy task.
And I remember reading, I don't know if it was on LinkedIn or Twitter, a post from somebody who is actually trying to be a very transparent company on these issues. So one limit and one challenge that they had was that some of the companies they are working with are not wanting to be transparent and are actually charging very big money to give this information to them. So that is definitely a big challenge, and again brings us back to the transparency of the whole supply chain.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you both so much for your insights and your analysis. It's really, really great contribution, and we're really excited to have you on board for our event. And actually we have run out of time and it's gone super fast. That's a good sign. But we'd like to thank everybody who's attended today, and we hope to see you all in our next webinar, which is on Monday at 4 p.m, where we have Annette Lendel, which is the project manager of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. She's going to talk to us a bit about upstream innovation and how we can design solutions for a circular economy. So just last thing, just a short reminder for everybody to sign up to the case competition if they haven't done already at dansic.innerflow.io. And if you have any questions about the case competition, you can actually just hold on for a few minutes and we will answer some questions for you about the event. So just stay online and post your questions in the group if you'd like to ask anything. If not, then thank you again for your time, and thank you Tina and Outi again for your amazing contributions. It was great to have you.
Thank you. And we look forward to the competition and all of your brilliant ideas. Please teach us how to do this.
We hope you're impressed with what we can come up with.
For sure. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.